screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so I just want to welcome everybody to the Rewards Mastermind here. So that our big intent is to share ideas and concept around compensation and rewards so that we better the overall profession and help companies perform better attract and retain their talent and create workplaces where employees love. So that's our big drive here. So today we're going to talk about job evaluation, but first I want to introduce our hosts. My name is Sam Reeve and I'm with CompTeam. We're all with CompTeam here. Howard and Heather is our other hosts. And we're a compensation consulting firm in the United States. We usually have clients that are all over the country and multinational as well. We support international firms. And that's how, as a matter of fact, that's how we came into the likes of Philipp and Zachary, which we'll talk about in a minute, and their global tool. So a little bit about our speakers today and our topic. So we're going to talk about job grading and why that is the foundation for excellent job architecture. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and the importance of creating this important foundation. But first, I want to introduce our guests here. First is Philipp, and he's the founder of Gradar. And Philipp, we're gonna go into your history a little bit, and we're not going to go and read all these bios here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And also Zachary, manager of the U.S. Gradar. So we're going to talk a little bit about your background, Zachary, first. So Zachary, tell us a little bit about yourself and I know you have 30 years of consulting and compensation and with a lot of companies around the globe, both public and private. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Zachary? How'd you get into this business?
Thanks very much, Sam. I know that like all of you, when you were 6 or 7 years old, you said, when I grow up, I want to work in compensation. So that's what happened to me. No, not at all. It's total serendipity. I started out thinking I wanted to be a computer scientist. So I guess the numbers come in there somewhere. And then when I started my career, I realized that I liked the interactions between people more than interactions between me and machines. And started studying human resources and had a job as a generalist in one of my first jobs. And the benefits manager retired and I inherited the benefits manager's job. And I did increasing numbers of compensation. And my second job was as a senior total compensation design consultant. So one of my early proposals was a compensation program that paid based on the number of letters in your job title. And the rest is history. I've been working for, as Sam said, more than 30 years in compensation. I have worked with small and large companies. I've worked globally. I was the head of international compensation and benefits for MasterCard at one point in my career. I was the head of business unit compensation for State Street Bank. I have, over the course of those 30 years, spent about 2/3 of it working for major corporations and about 1/3 of it, and now currently as an independent consultant providing compensation expertise. The practical experience is complemented by lots of education. I have 3 graduate degrees, including a law degree and an MBA in finance. So I try to bring all of those things to bear, working with the clients that I work with or the companies that I work with.
Yeah, there's a lot of experience there, Zachary. Do you ever have time to go and have fun anytime in your life? Or is it all studying and business?
Well, I went to visit Philipp once. That was fun.
Oh, nice.
No, I like to travel. My work has taken me all around the world, and I always find time to add a little bit of enjoyment, visiting museums and getting to know the places that I travel to. There's fun in there somewhere, but I have fun doing the work that I do as well.
Great. Well, Philipp, I know that Zachary's a tough act to follow, but one thing that you established is building this great company and this important tool for job evaluation that is the foundation of compensation. So can you tell us a little bit about your history and what drove you to produce this tool and so forth?
Well, I started my professional career at IBM doing talent management, and I realized working with people is not exactly my favorite. But I wanted to stay in HR, and I figured, well, maybe working with the numbers crunching data, working with the Excel sheets. That's me. And it was. So I went from IBM to Watson Wyatt back in the day, before they went through the merger with Towers Perrin and Willis, and have now a very complicated name, Willis Towers Watson. And I really started loving it right away. So my first assignment was transferring their system from a desktop-based Java application to a web-based system. And amongst all the consultants, I was the guy who the clients wanted to talk to, because I understood this web-based system. So compensation and web-based technology has always been my favorite when it comes to this part of my professional life. Yeah. And after Towers Watson, back then Towers Watson, I went to a client of mine. So I did the corporate stint. At the end, I was a director for compensation and HR IT. And in parallel, I had started my own business. And when you start a business, especially when you want to make a software, it's a lot about research, and it's a lot about developing a minimum viable product. And then once you see that it works, investing more and developing a fully enterprise-ready product. And that's what we did. So in 2019, I decided to quit my corporate job and focus on Grada full-time. And that was the year when we started our company in the United States. And a year after, we started another one in the United Kingdom. So right now we have a global presence of one in the States, one in the UK, and another one in Germany, covering all of Europe.
And it's a global tool. And you have like how many clients do you have on Gradar now, Philip, with that time?
So we started shipping the tool in early 2016 and have since won more than 300 clients.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. 300 global clients. Yeah. Well, anyway, as we dive into this topic, I know you guys are very, very impressive, and thank you for sharing your histories there. It's great. As we dive a little bit into this topic, I want to just remind everybody, if you have any questions if you happen to be on the Zoom platform, because we are multicasting this across several platforms, including Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and so forth. But if you happen to be on the Zoom platform, you can go ahead and leave some questions, either the QA or chat. Feel free to use that chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be able to look at your questions there. If you happen to be on another platform, what we'll do is we'll take your questions after the session, and we can answer those online wherever you're at. Also, if you can contact me at any time, my name at sam@compteam.net, and I can take those questions there. So that's sam@compteam.net. All right, so as we're talking about job grading and leveling and job evaluation, so tell us, Philip, why is job evaluation so important for companies nowadays?
Well, we are living in an increasingly complex society, as well as in increasingly complex businesses. And job evaluation or job grading will give you a common language to speak around the world, which means that even if the titles change between continents, between countries, there's still one common factor, the grade, the points. And this is something that will give you, by looking at it, straight away the information on what level this job is going to be, whether this is part of a career path, what kind of competencies you can expect that are associated with it, and you can translate this grading value into some kind of market pricing as well. Mm-hmm. So it really lies the foundation for everything in an organization when it comes to HR. We don't yet do product development, but our focus is on HR structures and policies.
Yeah, I often tell my clients, especially because I work with a lot of clients in the technology industry that are doing lots of mergers and acquisitions. And one of the nice things to have in your pocket when you're going through one of those things is a good job structure, functions and families and levels. And that's something that if you have that infrastructure in place and you go through a merger or acquisition, you can easily categorize those jobs and put them into your infrastructure instead of going through a painful process of harmonizing both companies over time. So I find that job evaluation, having a good structure is super important early on. So I imagine you've probably gone through a lot of that, huh, Zachary?
Absolutely. In fact, I would add to the comments that both you and Philip have made about the benefits of having a consistent structure are that they really support equity. And equity is increasingly important as we look across our organizations, whether they're global or domestic, wherever you may be. You want to be consistent in how you think about and treat employees. So that common language leads to a lot greater equity, both in terms of both fairness and ability to compare yourself for competitive behavior. It can be a challenge, the complexity that Philip was talking about. You have almost a case of entropy, right? If you don't pay attention to it, it just gets messier and messier and messier. And having a solid job structure really provides huge benefits in terms of those equity issues, those competitiveness issues, career path issues. And as you'll see when we get a chance to talk a little bit more about the Gradar tool, it has links that support not only those kinds of issues, the job growth and the pay consistency issues, but it also can support performance management. It can give you guidance and help in managing career development and transition. So there's so many powerful things there. In fact, maybe this is a good time to jump in with why I think Gradar is such a great tool, because I have been a comp professional for a very long time, and I was first introduced to Gradar 5 or 6 years ago when Philip started to roll it out, and I took one look at it, and since then it's progressed tremendously as well. And I took one look at it and thought, wow, someone's finally built a tool that really supports the things that I do, and it's very easy and intuitive to work with. So I fell in love with the first day I saw it.
Yeah, agreed. And it's been a very helpful tool for our company as well in our consulting practice. For many firms, it's benefited. So, but I know that there's a lot of different methodologies of job evaluation, Philip. And so, and I know that the Gradar job evaluation is surrounding the point factor method. But can you tell me the other types of methodologies around job evaluation and why point factor is the best for our current age?
Well, there's two sides to point factor based job evaluation. So there's the classic point factor method, where you will have the points at the end of the day. And then there is a point factor based job grading, where the points are translated into a preset grading structure. And that's what we do with Gradar. And those two approaches, they are called analytical job evaluation. And then we have non-analytical job evaluation. And that the system most used will be job classification. And that's what we know from all of the survey vendors. So when I look at survey vendors such as Culpeper, or good friends at Culpeper, they have a job leveling methodology where they describe different levels for professionals, for support staff, as well as managerial levels. And these levels, they cover, or they try to cover everything that is important to them. But this is not analytical. So you have to match against a certain level. And that's what we call job classification. And that's mainly used nowadays for market pricing purposes. Basically, every vendor has some kind of job classification system. And then there is a system such as the job ranking or paired ranking, where you would be looking at two jobs and then compare them, and just by your gut feeling say, oh, this job is more worth than the other. And you don't do that anymore, because that's not a foundation to take any kind of decision for pay, because it's very much biased, and it will never hold up in court when it comes to any kind of equal pay claim. And it's not fair. Yeah, because there's the bias, there's the opinion maker, there's too much external influence, and it's in no way objective. And whenever we talk about equal pay, legislators, they really require a point factor based system to differentiate between the value of jobs. And I have this book always on my, it's actually a good book. Yeah, it's a recommendation. So Equal Pay Law and Practice from the UK. And it's pretty clear that whenever you are in this field of equal pay, you need some kind of job evaluation in order to build your own structure and take pay decisions at the end of the day. And yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that book that you just showed there, Philip, for our listeners? Is that does it have a singular author or to that?
Yeah, she's Daphne Romney, and I think she's a multi-talent just like Zachary. So and this is the standard book on equal pay that is kind of required literature whenever you work in the UK. Just like the Armstrong books are, I have those in here. Great stuff. So anyone who wants to learn about reward management practice, this is a recommendation. That's Michael Armstrong. And he covers everything when it comes to reward management. He covers everything when it comes to job evaluation. So that's the other book. So that's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, that's you gotta leave it to comp professionals to have the most boring names of books ever, right? It's just equal pay, guidebook to compensation. So anyway, so but thanks for going through those different methodologies of job evaluation. And you kind of pointed out that in today's world, when we're really thinking about equal pay and ensuring that that's done without bias, that we have to use methodologies that reduce the amount of bias, which excludes a lot of the job classification and the paired comparison methodologies of the past. Now, one thing that I think is kind of, it's not funny, but it's interesting that the US is still kind of stuck in that job classification phase forever. I mean, comp professionals here in the US have been matching the surveys using the classification methodology and haven't done much thought of the point factor methodology. And I think that most of that comes from the history. The point factor methodology was so, developed in the early 50s or even probably even before, and it was very onerous. And and going through and building the methodology and doing it was just a pain. And I think that's why it fell out of favor. It just was too tough. And that's why I was so excited when the GradeR tool came out. It made it so easy to be able to go through that point factor methodology. And Heather, I know that you've done this with tons of our clients and going through this. What's your experience in using the GradeR system and that point factor methodology?
Yeah, so GradeR provides an excellent web-based interface to work with different clients around the globe on really providing a non-biased solution to leveling jobs within that organization. And prior to finding GradeR and working with Philipp and Zachary, I participated in a variety of different demos. And through the demos, I started to become too overwhelmed to move forward and could only imagine what that would feel like for a client or an HR team really looking for a solution. So I've enjoyed using GradeR and working with Philipp and Zachary, and it's a very easy methodology and very easy for me to work with the clients and explain and see a clear picture across the company.
And I think one of the big things that's interesting is the amount of flexibility, because as in my experience, I mean, there's those companies out there and they're in different industries, right, that want to have a real flat organizational structure or just a few levels in their organization. And then there's others that go, well, guess what Google's doing? They got all these levels and they want to have tons of levels. And the cool thing about GradeR is it's so flexible. You can adapt it to any type of structure, whether they want to be flat or a flat organization or something that's very hierarchical. Can you tell us a little bit about the flexibility there, Philip?
Sure. I mean, you can see it in the background. Yeah. That's our great map. But
you have a slide. Can you show us that's the career paths and those general levels?
Let me pull this one up. Yeah. So this is the GradeR grade map. So now you know where we have the name from. Grading GradeR. So the idea is So in total, there are 25 grades. And the idea is to evaluate each job in the career path that is most suitable. So it's not a one size fits all, but it's a system that differentiates between jobs for individual contributors, project managers, and that's actually quite new because there are very, very few systems out there who do this, and people managers. Mm-hmm. Then the outcome is going to be one of 25 grades. And the interesting with Grader is, and just by looking at this slide and our grade map, you can see it's a tool from the 21st century for the 21st century. We have this career path for individual contributors, where we have this huge overlap with project management as well as people management. Mm. Yeah. So if an organization decides to have expert career jobs, those will be on a comparable level to middle management jobs and maybe even top management jobs in an organization. So whenever we do job evaluation, and just by looking at the results, you can tell whether it's a modern organization that is delayered and where you have this servant leadership thing, yeah, where people managers really focus on developing employees and being there for them instead of holding the fort and being the subject matter expert at the same time. And then there you would have those experts. Or you have a very classic hierarchical organization where you maybe only have a couple of professionals in grade 10, 11, but everything else happens in the people management career path.
Yeah, I like the fact that you have significant overlap here, because that's one thing that a lot of my technology type clients are looking for, is significant overlap in the amount of where you see the expert and the gurus are extending way into the top management and general management of the management track. So that seems to be something that is highly desired now. As we all know, some of the errors of the past, where organizations trying to, I guess, almost force some of their top individual contributors to go into management to continue to increase in their career or to pursue the higher levels in their career. That's no longer the case. There's definitely that dual career track has been around for a while, where they can continue to increase their competency in their career by going up that individual contributor track. So tell us a little bit about you mentioned that the project management career track is something that's kind of new in tools that Grader has since its inception. So why is that the case, Philip? Why is that? Why are you seeing that?
It was a design decision early on. So I knew that we wanted to have people management and individual contributors, but in the past I had seen that, especially in modern and delayered and agile organizations, a career path for project managers was missing. So the decision was, let's have that. Now, with the evaluation results of about 100,000 evaluation results in the system, we can see that only about 2% of all of the jobs in the system are project managers. So for many organizations, it's not that important. They have a classic organization, but for those who use the project management career path, this is a very valuable addition. So right. It's probably not for everyone, but for those who need it, it's great.
Yeah, and this is definitely something that I've seen in the years I've been in compensation, and I imagine, Howard, you probably have as well. There was the onset of the project management, the PMO office, that was kind of separate. But then as we interface with a lot of clients, there's those professionals that go into the general project management, and those that kind of grow up through those specialized services, whether they're a technology guru or scientist or something like that, that have domain knowledge that go into that project management area. Have you seen that, Howard, in the years you've been doing comp?
Yes, especially the last few years, it's becoming more and more prevalent in organizations, and it's always been an issue as to, what do we do with these people and how do we pay them correctly? especially when you get the more senior individual contributors and you move them into project management, and it raises lots of questions about not only their base compensation, but their incentive compensation as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, and that's the reason why I think I like that in this the Great R system is that there's actually a different, a little bit of a modified questionnaire for project managers versus management, and then versus the individual contributor. There's a unique questionnaire for each. And why do we need a unique questionnaire for each of those career tracks, Philip? What's the driver behind that?
Well, it's a learning from earlier legacy systems that if you use one questionnaire for every job, some jobs just can't get big. That's very easy. So, or you might have to bend and twist the system that you're using in order to establish something like an expert career path, because the system was not made for it back when it was invented in 1948. And the idea is to have dedicated questionnaires for each of those categories so that you do right by every job that you are evaluating, and so that there is no bias when you evaluate a job. So you have a lot of consistency within the career path as well as between the career paths. So that's the beauty of using different career paths, consistency as well as very little bias. And that's actually something that you have in some of the older systems. There's a very strong management bias. You can only become someone if you start managing others, if you start holding on to a big budget. Only then you may drive the big car and you get the high incentives. But that's not what Great R is for.
I would add that the struggle between differentiating people managers and project process managers is not that much of a new challenge. It's something that I have seen over the course of my career, but we've never had a good way to accurately identify, track, evaluate those people process manager jobs. I remember times where we would have big debates about, okay, wait a minute. These people are managing a process and these people are managing people. So how do we know which is which? We have a payroll manager and a manager of payroll. So one of them's managing people and one of them's managing payroll, for example. And the ability to differentiate in the job evaluation process really provides much greater accuracy in the outcomes as you're developing a hierarchy and a structure, because at the end of the day, job evaluation is really about identifying relative internal value of the various jobs that you're looking at in the organization.
Right, which is super important in our more globalistic type of economy that we have now. I mean, I know that one of the biggest challenges I faced early on in my career is trying to benchmark jobs that are the same across borders. You know, you have a financial analyst, or let's just say it's something even bigger. You know, so a VP of finance in the United States, and then a VP of finance in, let's say, Serbia or Turkey or wherever like this. And so, I mean, and to make things worse is that back when I started, it was primarily job classification. And so in the US, we would use a survey and classify it and that survey here in the US. And then we had a different survey in Turkey or Australia or whatever it may be. And in a similar classification method, but you would get different results. And plus the way that managers describe the jobs in those areas, I mean, there's a lot of bias and so forth. And I know that another one of your side passions that you had, Philip, was creating the Rosetta tool for that kind of brought all those job classification pieces together that helped inform your tool, right? So can you tell us a little about Rosetta and how that came into play? And another thing I have to say that's really cool about, well, it's just Europeans in general, is their passion for open sourced tools. And Rosetta is something that can be just picked off the web. Philip's posted on there for the world. And so he's done a lot of work over the time, over the years to build this and keep it updated. And so it's a great tool for people to reference, those compensation practitioners that want to see what levels are consistent across the globe.
Well, everybody needs a hobby. So that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is when I started doing this, and I'm not the first creator. So there was someone, a guy at, I think that was back in the days at Sun Microsystems, called John Hittinen. I think he's Finnish, and he started building early version. But it was outdated at some point. So I decided, okay, let's continue his work. Open source. Sun Microsystems, great company. I always loved their workstations. So I'm following the tradition. And then I started doing this over the Christmas period. So I was busy. I was not getting into any fights with the family. Yeah, so that was great. And
well, it's I just have to say, it's just an interesting hobby. I mean, most people kind of try to grow chia pets or collect stamps or something like this, and you're updating a system out of for surveys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I play with Legos, but that's another story. No, but the idea was to use our grading system in order to assess the relative values of all of these job classification systems. So I started looking at the job link leveling system from Aon. I started looking at what Birch's Group is doing, at what Comtrix did. They are not in business anymore, really. Then we had Culpeper and Hay, and this is, for example, there's a system for academic organizations in the UK. This is a system from Switzerland. Then we have iPass, which has been around for some time. I think they were with IBM and Connexa at some point. Now they are with Salary.com. Then this is a German vendor. This is the new Mercer job library. We have Patterson, which is a system that is mainly used in South Africa. We have Pearl Mayer, an American vendor. Peromnis, that's a system mainly used in South Africa. Then there's Redford, the new one, as well as the legacy system. Sedlak and Sedlak from Poland. Woody's Towers Watson, and then from Western Management Group, their comp-based and retail compensation survey system. So that's a lot of fun. And you can really do a read across. I was asked today by a client of mine, and she asked how we would translate Aon's M05 level to, it was M05 level to Mercer. And so that's something that we did in the system. So that's, doesn't look very proficient what I'm doing here. So here you can see there's the M1 level for Mercer. So that's our grade 11 and 12. And then there is the, at the same level, so grade 11 and 12, there is the Aon level M05. So that's pretty awesome. And we did something very similar with labor agreements, for example, in the Netherlands. So for the international audience, a labor agreement is something that is negotiated between an employer association and an employee association and sets the pay rates across an entire industry. And you can translate them. So for example, there's the CATS agreement in the Netherlands, or the FWG for the medical sector, or looking at Germany, which is the most labor agreement dense country in the world, I would say. You have different industry, be it rubber industry or wholesale and trade. And this is a system that really gives you an overview across all of these leveling systems. And that's actually free compensation data, free benchmark data. As a system like this one from the metal and electronics industry, and in one state, for example, covers about 700,000 employees. And the strongest surveys in Germany only cover about 400 or maybe 500,000 employees. So 700,000 data points here for free, or $5,000 for a survey with only maybe 400,000 data points. It's definitely a second source that you can use for free. So that's quite exciting.
Right. Well, it's a lot of good work you've done here. I've talked to some of my colleagues and some of the large consulting firms, and they go, "Oh, have you seen that tool?" Yeah, and I go, "Oh, yeah, I know Philip. He created it." And he's like, I mean, so I mean, this is used across the board by a lot of even individuals and some of the largest consulting firms. So thanks for your contribution there, Philip. How can people find this tool, and what's the best way to use it?
Yeah. So as always, I'm a great engineer and technician, but I'm very, very bad at marketing. So this is something that you can find on our website. It's called, and that was an early mistake. We called the company not Grader, but QPM. It wasn't very smart. Yeah, but in hindsight, we should have called it Grader. And so we called our American company as well as the UK company Grader Limited and Grader LLC. So when you go on our QPMDE website, there is the button Rosetta. And there you can download the Rosetta Stone. This is the most recent version from 2021.
Great.
There's
Thanks for
another
that.
fun thing that at some point we built into our tool. And it's actually using the information from this Rosetta Stone, and it gives you a translation of the grading results to those different compensation surveys, and not just by level. And I'm just going to use our demo job here. So it's an HR job. We have a very long list of global job families in the system. It's more than 250 different families. They all come with a summary and typical activities, so a detailed description. So the system takes this information from the job family together with the grading result, in this case, individual contribution in grade 10, and gives you a translation into job codes from multiple vendors.
That's a big time saver.
Absolutely. And this is really then, again, the foundation to do market pricings and market benchmarking. And you can use the vendor that is most relevant in the country there where you are in the industry that you want to benchmark yourself against. So this is an example where you would have a vendor from Poland, another one from Germany, then a one vendor from the United States, that is just focused on the United States and covers the NPO and NGO sector. And then you have Culpeper, which is a global vendor, and you have their job code here. So the system allows you to upload the data and then display the data from all the different vendors on the job profile. And that was an idea inspired by this little open source project of mine.
That's great. Thanks for sharing there, Philip. So I know we'll have a glimpse into the system a little bit later, and also I'll give the ability for anybody that's listening in to be able to sign up for a demo if they'd like through, if that's on the Zoom platform, I'll release that. Actually, I can just release it now. You can, if you want to take a look further, you can sign up for a Great Art demo here. I'll launch that polling, and you can just hide this if you'd like. But also, if you're on a different platform, feel free to just leave a message there, and then we'll track you down and give you a demo of the Great Art system. But right now, so Phil, tell us a little bit more about the different methodologies across the globe as far as how different companies or countries, actually, how different countries look at the job evaluation process, what's important, and so forth.
So this is something that I had to learn, and because when I started this job, this was a view on things that was very much European. But since I've worked in Asian countries, I've worked in the United States or for the United States, Canada, and other organizations worldwide. So there are a couple of cultural differences that I've encountered, and when I talk about those, I can only focus really on job evaluation. There are many others, but job evaluation is my baby. So in European countries, you often look at the job and you try to determine the value of the job, the value of labor, not the price. But you start then comparing one job to the other because there's a certain grade associated to it, and you really start building a structure. And then based on the structure, you start building something like a pay band. And then within the pay band, pay spine, pay scale, you will start developing the employees. So it's a very different approach to finding the perfect spot rate, like what happens in market pricing. And also the entire legal framework is very much focused on pay equity, on equal pay, and especially what's been going on in Spain and Lithuania and other European countries. And they are very much at the forefront of this development at the moment, equal pay becomes a major issue. And there's the gender pay gap that needs to be addressed, as well as other pay gaps. But the gender pay gap, that's the one governments are focusing on at the moment. And you really need job evaluation to do that. Then when you look at Asia, you have two other things that are quite important, and it's the age of employees, as well as the status that is quite important for within the organizations. Yeah, and so what you often have is something like a seniority principle, which results in frequent promotions. It's not a real promotion in many cases. And in other countries, this would still be the same grade, but in some countries, there's maybe a lower rank, middle rank, and a higher rank, junior, regular, senior, associated with one and the same job. And then we have the United States, where there is a very strong focus on market rates, on pricings. And so combining all of this in a global job architecture and a global grading framework, that's actually something that is very, very exciting. Because there are cultural differences, and you really need to take them into account and be aware of those differences, and then slowly introduce the different regions and cultures to your global grading method, and maybe change your entire culture in the company, at least for HR and the compensation people, to do a grading first approach, and then have a look at the market rates. And really link grading not only to market data, but as well as to competencies and ranks and titles and skills, etc.
So can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, you mentioned that it's really important for and when you see all this come together in a multinational company and looking at these different approaches, can you tell us some of the learnings that you had as far as things to avoid in this process, or some learnings there, Philip?
So this is not scripted, yeah. Well, so one major learning for me was that when you work with American parts of an organization, they will often be using more than one survey to benchmark against. So they will be using 2 or 3 surveys. And that's actually something that was supported by some research that we did last year, right pre-COVID, together with World at Work, where we sponsored one of their surveys on how job evaluation and market pricing is used in many organizations. And one of the findings was that many organizations use 2 or more surveys for market data. So that was one of the findings. So, and this is something that cannot be ignored. Yeah, so when you take this very European approach of saying, okay, everybody needs to use pay bands, this is probably not going to work in the United States, and you really need to have the insight into market rates, especially when you have different geographies, because especially the United States are one of the countries where you actually see major differences between different regions, which is much harder to tell when you go into European countries, apart maybe from France, where you have Paris, and then outside Paris, and or Poland, where you have Warsaw, and outside Warsaw. So that's actually quite interesting. And the other thing is not evaluating by title, what you mentioned before. Not every VP is going to be on the same level. And trying to minimize some kind of bias, because not every VP is going to do a lot of strategy work. And some VPs, they will be on the same level like a team lead in other countries. So really harmonizing the way you look at jobs and job descriptions and apply your job evaluation tool, that's actually something that is not easy. And you really need some process owners who do the checks and balances so that you get meaningful and reliable results.
Yeah, no, Heather, you did a recent project that you had to coordinate across multiple countries. So can you tell us a little bit about your story there as far as some learnings?
Yeah, as relying and kind of echoing what Philip had shared with us about consistency and the importance of calibration, it was great to have the opportunity to work with a peer in Serbia, for example, and really realize, our methodology and our calibration points, and with Philipp's great input and support through this, is her and I were right on par on our thoughts and processes with calibrating these jobs worldwide. And then, one of the biggest things for me that I found interesting, because my experience overseas is relatively minimal, was seeing how countries like Serbia really like to see additional levels. For example, we were seeing a Meteor 1, 2, and 3, but at the end of the day, using Philipp's tool, we were able to illustrate to our client that there was very minimal differences between a Meteor 1, 2, and 3. And we really had a hard time working with leadership to say, tell us, what is the true difference between a Meteor 1 to a 2 to a 3, and really seeing that, responsibilities and the functional organizational reach that this Meteor position had is really the same. And what we were seeing is more of a step progression that the client wanted to have to help with increases. So that's one of the biggest benefits I see with Gradar, is this illustrative portion and the non-bias data behind it to say, here's what we're seeing. And these, at the end of the day, these positions are still going to be within the same grade. You can still have this plan for a stepped increase, is what we would refer it to.
May I show a slide that is going to illustrate what you just mentioned?
Yes, yeah, let's see that, because these are great.
Okay, there's the Chinese flag. Yeah, but you can swap it against some other countries, and exactly what you said. So basically, in the United States, it might be just one job, the engineer in grade 11 and the senior engineer in grade 12. But in other countries, they may want to do some more micro grading. That's what I call this. Yeah? And then you have the engineer 1, 2, 3, or the senior engineer 1, 2, 3. And then it's actually about pay. It's not so much about the requirements of the job, but it's about seniority and pay progression, and guaranteeing someone who enters as a engineer 1 to be promoted along with the pay increase from 200,000 something to 225 and 250 in maybe 36 months. So instead of using something like a pay band, where you have more room to develop, you would be using something like a stepped approach to managing pay, just like in a labor agreement. So.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for showing us the flexibility there. I think that just demonstrates the amount of how Gradar can help, and keep the integrity of those cultural norms in different areas, and still have global equity, and and pay fairness. So thank you for showing us. So I know we're coming towards the top of the hour, and I did want to give everybody a little bit of a more glimpse of the tool. So Philip, would you mind taking us through just a real quick demo and showing us how everything works for Gradar? And I think as you get this ready, okay, there we go. We can hear you now.
Again, not scripted, so. And I was even late for the pre-session, so sorry about that. Okay, so whenever you log on to the system, and the fun part about Gradar is that you can actually sign up for a demo yourself, as long as you use a corporate email address. You can actually do that right away. So you are in the system, and then you have the dashboard. And on the dashboard, there's a lot of interesting stuff to see. So there are the supporting materials, like link to our user manual. It's open on the internet, so you can see what Gradar is all about. There's a link to the Rosetta comparison, a link to the competency library that we have built into the system, as well as release notes on our new features and the main functionality. So even if you're using a tablet, you can just point there and access the most important features. And one of the features here in the system is something that I love a lot. It's called the cross comparison. So whenever you talk about equity and compare the jobs, this is what you want to have. On the y-axis, you have the grades, and on the x-axis, a variable that you can use, that you can choose, be it a global job family, which comes built into the system, or be it something like an organizational unit that is defined for each user to their own wishes. And you can see here, that's the organizational unit. You might have something like anchor jobs or corporate jobs in automotive. And then you can apply the filters and say, okay, I only want to see the people management jobs. And then, because there's the job family people management and there's a structure underneath, you can switch to, let's say, the job family and then see, oh, these are the jobs in people operations that we have. And which is basically the foundation to see, okay, there's obviously a Russian job that's on the same level like my junior specialist, learning development. And there's maybe a job from, well, here's one from Germany that is on the same job as an expert compensation benefits, but has a different title, but is in the same job family. So that's the way how you can really start analyzing and seeing what kind of jobs you have in the organization and where there's maybe potential to harmonize jobs and to lower the numbers of different jobs that you have in your job architecture. And then the actual job, there are a couple of reports in the system. So that's all pretty much standard stuff. And you can start searching and filtering the jobs. And when you look at one of the jobs, I'm going to use our demo job here. You've got the master data where there are job titles, job codes, maybe some comments to be added, an alignment with your own organizational unit, your global job family that is relevant, and maybe something like grading status, your own in-house job family, etc. And then there is the grading result. So in this case, individual contribution in grade 10 and how you achieved there. So by selecting professional knowledge on this level, together with a comment in this case, why this level of an undergraduate degree was selected. Or there's something like people responsibility for the individual contributors, which is not about managing people, but about guiding them, instructing them, training them, for example. All the way from via processes and functional responsibility, all the way down to communication. I mean, we can have a look at this if there's enough time later on how to do a detailed job evaluation. It's quite a nice process. And then you would have the different pay structures for all of the locations that you're managing, be it for China, be it for Europe, be it for the States. Yeah, so we could switch to the pay bands for the Netherlands and then have something like maybe 3 segments, or you might have segments, only 2 segments for your pay bands. So there are many different possibilities to account for. And these are the steps. So here there's an interval of 12 months, another 12 months to increase pay. So there are different options. And then you have the job matches, the benchmark job matches from different survey vendors, which is fully customizable. So if you have a survey that you want to have in the system, this is something that we can help you with to put there. And then you could have the market data. So your internal grade is a grade 10, and the market data, and this is fake data, will give you this median value for base pay and target total compensation, or have a market value. And I think this is actually real data from, I think, yeah, that's from Germany. And then you can have a look at a market data comparison and see how different vendors, different survey vendors compare. And then finally, and this is, I think, one of the most interesting features of Grader, because it kind of shows the future where we are going. Here with the competency matches, we bridge the gap between compensation management and talent management. And this is something that I always wanted to see in all of the compensation and grading projects that I did in advance, because talent and compensation were always stuck in their silos. And instead of using a job evaluation system to have the same foundation, everybody was reinventing the wheel and was doing their own thing. And my idea was, no, let's bridge this gap and have a built-in competency model in here. So this is, I mean, it's fully customizable. but this system or this competency model works straight out of the box. So you evaluate a job, you select a global job family, and the system will give you 7 competencies together with the behavioral examples, behavioral anchors that are relevant to this job on this level in this job family. And the beauty of this system is, and I mean, Sam, you know them quite well. This is a system from TMA that we have licensed. Their competencies, they come on 4 levels, and they all come with interview questions that you can use in a structured recruiting interview. They come with development activities that can be used in any kind of talent management process, and even down to there's coaching advice, which can be used by managers or a talent manager to help employees to perform better. So this is really bringing everything together.
Yeah, once again, the TMA method is another global tool, and which also is a fan of open source. That competencylibrary.com is a free tool for all of you to use. And they also have apps that are free that has this content on there as well. So if you're thinking about implementing a talent program that is going to interface very beautifully with your compensation system, this is a great place to start. Well, I know that we're coming towards the top of the hour here, Philip, and I know there's a lot of people out there that might be interested in a more thorough demo of the system, and perhaps even modifying it to your own individual situation. If you're interested in that, please go ahead and sign up through that poll, or you can give me a contact once again at Sam Reeve or actually sam@compteam.net, sam@compteam.net, and I'll make sure that we get a demo for you and to go through those details. But right now,
there's one thing that I haven't actually told you yet. We only had yesterday, we had a new client sign on for our new product called jobevaluation.net, which is basically the grader framework or the grader software, but stripped down and white labeled. So you can put any kind of point factor based job evaluation system into our software and use it and have a web-based system. So that's by client demand. Yeah, so people talk to us and we say, okay, this is actually something where we can help them, so let's do it. So that's super exciting, and that's going to be very, very exciting going forward.
That's great. So those practitioners out there that have done the point factor methodology and built one of your own very favorite tools, and you want to apply that to a new modern source, Philip has done you a great wonder so thanks once again, Philip. I mean, that's great. I can't wait to go ahead and play with that tool. I know that there's some organizations out there that want to have their own unique method, or they currently have a legacy tool that is point factor that they're still working on paper that they would love to have a web interface. So thank you so much for building that. That's great. All right, so to learn a little bit more about your company, Philip, or I mean, you mentioned jobevaluation.net. Where else can people learn more about Gradar?
Well, there's a lot on gradar.com. And when I say a lot, it means that. So we have many visitors who would never sign up, actually many visitors from academia, so young students who do research, and they basically copy paste from our website into their papers. Yeah.
Plagiarism is alive and well. I would like to jump in. The information and material that's available on the Gradar website is definitely a compensation 101 course, maybe even 102 course. For someone who's so inclined, there's a huge amount of educational information that can be incredibly useful, particularly if you have a more senior comp person mentoring less experienced comp person in your organization and they want to provide them with information and resources. It's absolutely amazing.
Great. Thanks, Zachary. Well, once again, I just want to say thank you for all you guys for joining and participating in this conversation today. It was very educational, and learned a lot myself. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And I just encourage everybody to go out there and take a look at the tool if you haven't done so already. So great. Well, once again, thank you very much. And you guys have a wonderful month. See you next time.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.